why you shouldn't fear the half marathon. That might sound a lot for some of you, that might be overwhelming for some of you, but what I can tell you is that I do truly believe that anyone who puts their mind to it, who has the ability to run, can do this. It is possible. It may take you 6 months, it may take you a year, it may take you longer than that, it may take you much shorter than that. It really depends on your current fitness level, but what we're talking about here is completion. I don't necessarily think the goal has to be for a half marathon, being able to run the whole thing without stopping, because it is a long distance, and to be able to run 10 miles of it and walk 3 and put in a few hours of fitness and movement is something that anyone should be proud of, regardless of who you are or where you came from or what the people around you are doing. By the end of this episode, the thought of you going forward and training for this race is not a scary thought. It's something that you have the right resources, information, and motivation to want to do. There was a new world record. The first person to ever run a half marathon in completion at age 102. So I hope this provides some perspective and motivation for you guys. Someone who is 102 years old, which it's hard enough to live to that age. It's hard enough to live to 90. You're living to 102, and you complete 13.1 miles in a single day. Get out of frickin' town. That is unbelievable. And so, yes, I don't know the full story of this person or anything like that, how long they've been running. But what I can tell you is if that person at 102 can do this, I don't care where you are physically right now, you can complete this distance, and you shouldn't fear it. But I actually found a really cool article. It has a lot of different statistics. First one here is that approximately 2 million people finish a half marathon in the United States annually. That's a lot of people, but that's not a large percentage of the population. I know 1% of people ever complete a full marathon in their life. So this is clearly a bit higher than that because it's, each year. And then there's some people we're not going to categorize. I don't think anyone who is under probably 13 years old, I don't think you should consider doing the half marathon yet. And I also would argue that if you've never competed in a race before, I don't think the first race you should be doing is a half marathon. People do it. I know people whose first race is full marathon. They went from nothing to a full marathon. That's very impressive. And I think that's something maybe you should be a little fearful for. I think you can do it with the half. I think it's possible, but I'm not saying I recommend that. Start with a mile. Do a 5K. Do a 10K. And it doesn't have to be a race. You can just do that on your own, on a track, on a loop, whatever it might be. But I think getting a race under your belt, at least one under your belt first, is good to just understand the atmosphere and the logistics that come with racing. First time I ever did a half marathon, I was 23. I'd already been running at that point competitively for over 10 years, but my focus was the distances that I could compete at my high school level. And then when I got to college, running wasn't much of a priority competitively. I did do 5Ks and I coached, but that would have been a fine time to go ahead and get started. I think after high school is probably optimal. Average age in a half marathon, fun fact, is 37 years old. Just provides perspective that, even if you are, let's say, 37 right now, you feel like you've never ran before and that's an old age to get started. Well, the average person who's completing this race is your age. Plenty of 50, 60-year-olds that I know well complete this distance. 33% of half marathon participants report that they run a half marathon in pursuit of a personal record. Okay, so what that tells me is 2 out of 3 people are not running it for a time, but rather they're just doing it for completion. And I like this stat a lot. A half marathon, I think especially once you get to these longer distances, the race is not necessarily about being able to come in first place or make a record for yourself that you've never done before. No. The point of this race is that 13 miles is something that is fucking hard. When you wake up at 6 a.m. on a Saturday morning and you get out there and you run 13 miles and you finish it, that is one of the best feelings in the world. I guarantee you, maybe you might be a little tired, a little sore, but that weekend, the rest of that day, you are going to be feeling incredible, knowing that you did something healthy and positive for yourself. You surrounded yourself around amazing people and did something extraordinary that you can continue to build on. Yes, if you want to go ahead and chase an accomplishment and complete a half marathon and then run a faster time and then run a faster time, that's what I do with my racing. But that's not what it needs to be about. You could certainly just do it because it's healthy and because you know it's great for you and that you will see physical, mental benefits, all of that from training for this race and then completing this race. 67% of half marathon runners run at least 2 races per year. I think that is definitely backing up my point where I was talking about the fact that, maybe don't just start off with a half marathon, go ahead and do some other races first. Clearly, having a strategy behind running another race and getting those jitters out. I've learned that the half marathon is a really, really popular race. People love it, and I love it. To be honest, it's a race that I probably from start to finish feel the best during. I'm training for marathons right now. I really love the process of the marathon because I think it is really hard for myself. But when you talk about actually enjoying a race for what it is, the half is probably my favorite. Almost 50% of runners feel this way as well. 47% of half marathon runners report their preferred distance is the half marathon. And I think it's because when you take a race like a 5K, a 10K, or something even shorter, right? For many people, they feel like to be competitive in those races, you need to run really fast and almost feel like you're sprinting and get your heart rate high. And when it comes to training, a lot of the training is involved with speed work and high intensity workouts and even strength training. And then when you talk about the marathon or longer, it is a high level of commitment. Most marathon runners are putting in 35, 40, 50, 60, 70, maybe even 100 plus miles in a week. And to run 26 miles in a day is no guarantee that you're going to be able to finish that. Depending on your level of training, it's not an easy race by any means. 1% of people ever do it, okay? And so when you talk about the half, I think it has that beautiful balance of a good bit of commitment, but you don't have to run every day. You could run 20, 25 miles a week. You could run 3 or 4 days a week. Yes, you could do much more than that and see a lot more success, but I'm just going like baseline level. I think that you run 3 days in a week and put in 20 miles, like you could still complete the half marathon, no doubt about it. That is definitely something that I think allows people to really admire it, as well as the fact that you really get to experience some incredible races when doing a half marathon. I mean, oftentimes marathons have the option of a half marathon. So you can be running with marathon runners at elite high-level races, but when they go ahead and they turn on to the next half of the race, you get to finish up early and get the food and the drinks and relax. I don't think this is important at all, but something to note, the average half marathon finisher time is right under 10 minutes a mile, 9:56. So I think there's some people out there that feel like, oh, if I'm not running 7, 8, 9 minute miles, and I'm not a good runner. Well, the average runner is barely doing it in under 10 minutes a mile. And if you are running 11, 12, 13 minute pace and you are below average, that doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with that, right? And you can work on getting closer to average, but you're above average just doing the race itself. So feel good about that. There's always room for improvement. And that's not what it has to be about for anyone, but just something to note. Is to not put pressure on the pace, but put pressure on the goal of finishing. If you are training for a half marathon, like you should get the right coaching, get a structured plan, reach out to me, reach out to someone that you're interested in coaching you, or find resources online, whatever it might be that you like to use for your training. But I do believe that you should be following 80-20. 80% of your running should be incredibly easy running. We're talking at least a few minutes slower, 3 to 4 minutes slower than what you intend to run a half marathon in for 80% of your runs. And then 20% should be, fairly close to that pace that you want to run, or a little slower, a little faster, depending on the workout itself. Following the strategy of increasing your mileage 5 to 10% each week is going to really help you, and making sure 2 to 3 weeks out before the race to taper. So I would recommend decreasing the mileage 3 weeks out before the race, probably 25% of what your mileage was at the peak week, and then another 50%, and then close to 70% that last week. 73% of half marathon participants incorporate strength training into their routine. I love this one. I think there's so many people who go out there and they run and they commit to a goal with running, such as completing a race, and they don't go ahead and do anything else. And listen, you can accomplish a half marathon without strength training. I'm not saying you have to do it, but I do believe that strength training is going to help prevent injuries, because when you build strength in your core, your leg muscles, your back, all these different areas, it will make sure that if you are training hard, you prevent yourself from overtraining and becoming injured. So I think that is something that everyone should do, and it doesn't have to be every day. I think that if you go ahead and you're running 3 or 4 days a week and you apply 1 or 2 days of strength training a week, and it can be during those days that you're running or on those off days, that's going to be great. And it can be something as simple as just doing some push-ups, leg raises, some squats. 61% of half marathon participants run with a training partner. Okay, I'm not sure if this is talking about racing or like training with a training partner, but I think for a lot of people, when they go out there and they run 3 or 4 miles when they first get started on running, it is a huge, huge challenge for them. They're like, how in the world can I go ahead and run 10 more miles if I can barely finish 3 or 4 miles? A lot of this is mental. That's just the goddamn truth. You get out there, you get uncomfortable, you get hot, you start thinking about it too much, and you lose the confidence in yourself to continue moving because you are stuck within your thoughts. Now, if this is something physical, right? You actually are injuring yourself, you have shin splints, you have severe knee pains, be cautious of that, right? It's very important, and I've talked about this a ton of times if you watch my other content, but we're gonna keep talking about it, that you are preparing yourself for these runs. You're drinking enough water, you're sleeping, you're having a good diet, you're stretching before and after these runs, you're doing things like strength training, like I said. These things will all help. But when we talk about the mental side of things, I do believe that blocks certain people from accomplishing a goal like this. And so I think if you are going out there and training, especially on your long run days with a training partner or a training group, the likelihood of you completing the distance that you are setting out for yourself to complete on that given day, it goes up. For myself, I could tell you that the runs that I do on my own, especially for myself, like speed training, because I'm trying to run at like really hard paces for my running goal, I have a hard time hitting those paces unless I'm running with someone. The long runs that I do, I've trained myself a little bit more on, but I know that the challenge for many is getting the distance in. So find people to run with. Go online, Google running groups in my area, type in your area, go on social media, look that stuff up, and just show up. You don't have to talk to people, but if you are running with them, amazing things will happen, and maybe you'll make some friends out of that. The half marathon, it sounds like a lot. It has the name marathon. Marathon! Like you hear that and you're like, wow, I don't know if I could ever do that. Marathon. It's intimidating. It is something that is frowned upon by communities and groups of people. I will never do a marathon. Then you hear about the half marathon. I will never do that. But why not? My recommendation is that you challenge yourself to it. So if you are sitting down right now and you've never ran before, make this a goal for 6 months. Sign up for something in 6 months from now. Sign up for a shorter race in 3 months from now. And then start training today. Not tomorrow, not the day after. Start training today, unless it's like 11:45 p.m. And the training does not need to be super aggressive. You could start off running 1 or 2 days a week, then increase it to 2 or 3 after a couple of weeks, and on, 5 to 10% increase. All of these things will help. Watch running content, listen to different creators, watch some movies and documentaries about the half marathon. All these things will help shape your mind in the right direction towards this goal. Talk to other people about this goal who you know well, who have done this. They will help you. They will support you. Tell people that you are trying to accomplish this, and they will root for you. And reach out and ask questions. You can do that with me. You can do that with other people. If people aren't answering you, well, there's someone who will. So keep reaching out. If you go ahead and after 6 months, you go ahead and you give this half marathon thing a shot, maybe you didn't show up in the shape you were hoping, maybe something happened that day, and for whatever reason, you didn't complete the race. Just know it happens. We don't all accomplish what we want to do on the first time. I'm personally training to qualify for the Boston Marathon. I've tried this goal twice, and I have failed both times. But guess what? I'm still training for it. I'm still going out there and doing it. Okay? And I've been running for 13, 14 years at this point. Not telling you to train for the Boston Marathon right now, but my point is that you can do this goal. You just need to keep working at it and trying and learning, and amazing things will happen. So that's what we got. Half marathon. It is a beautiful race. It is something that I think everyone should try and do and work on for yourself, and you will find mental benefits, physical benefits, fulfillment and achievement, which is what running is all about. And you'll probably gain some friends and community relationships in the process, which is an added bonus that we all love. I love you all. Enjoy your day. As always, Run Breiter. Thanks.